This is the world's first mass-produced magnetic 10x10. It's also my first 10x10 period, or at least my first cubic one. It's made by a company you might not have ever heard of, DianSheng. They've been around for a long time, but it seems like they mostly make specialty puzzles like whatever this thing is. But recently they did get into the speed cubing market with a magnetic 2x2 all the way up through 7x7, and then they just kept going. They made a magnetic 8x8, a magnetic 9x9, and now a magnetic 10x10. I believe it's the first time any of those three puzzles have been mass produced with magnets. So today we're going to be checking out the brand new Galaxy 10x10 to see just how useful, or perhaps useless, magnets are in such a big puzzle. By the way, this was sent over by thecubicle.com, where you can use discount code Z3Cubing to get 5% off anything. That unboxing was a little underwhelming, but that's not the reason you buy a magnetic 10x10. First impressions, the stickerless shades look a little bit darker than normal, which I think looks nice, and we have these nice black plastic internals. I think it also comes in a primary plastic version. The cube is a very reasonable size for a 10x10. It's just small enough to fit in my hands comfortably. Compared to my Mofang Xiaoxi 9x9, as you'd expect, it's a little bit bigger overall, but each of the individual layers is just a little bit smaller. And one more thing that's pretty unique, you probably can't even see it on camera, but the outer edges and corners are just ever so slightly concave, so there's a little bit of a dip for your finger to sit into, and it definitely makes it a little bit more comfortable to hold those outer layers in your hands. So let's try out the turning. Starting from the outer layer, it feels a little bit bumpy, but still pretty smooth. Not a lot of friction. There's really very little resistance compared to most big cubes, and the magnet gives you a very nice little click. The next layer down definitely has a stronger magnetic click, which is great for 3x3 stage, and the turning itself feels pretty similar, maybe just a little bit tighter. And as you go further down, it pretty much stays the same. Again, slightly stronger magnets and a little bit tighter as you get closer to the center. Compared to something like this cheap 9x9, the main difference is just how easy it is to turn each layer. A lot of big cubes tend to feel like they're sort of clamped together, like the whole cube is designed to prevent you from turning it, whereas this cube doesn't feel like that at all. It's totally effortless, feels like really any other speed cube. Maybe it's just that the magnets make it so much more stable that they're able to loosen everything up without having to worry about it, and that's why it feels so much faster. But either way, this is definitely the best turning cube I've ever felt bigger than a 7x7. So I already have no doubt this is going to be the best 10x10 for speed solving, but before we try and quantify that by doing a solve, I want to dig a little bit deeper and see exactly what makes this cube so good. That's right, let's take this thing apart and see what's inside. So we can go ahead and pop out a couple edges like this, and then just go ahead and pick out these center pieces like this until they all sort of fall apart. There we go. So now we can grab these remaining edges, which are a little bit deeper down in the cube, as well as these other edges on this side. I don't think this corner is going to come out very easily. Nope. So now we can just move on to this other section of centers. There we go. And just for good measure, let's remove these last two center sections as well. And here it is with pretty much the entire white layer removed. As you can see, it looks pretty incredible, especially all these intricate layers of center pieces. Here's what one row of edges looks like, so you can see them all connecting together with the magnets. Each edge has a unique color of magnet, which is kind of fun. And as you can see on the inner layer, there are actually two magnets. That's how all even layer magnetic cubes work, because if you think about it, if there were only one magnet, then they would always repel each other. You can also see that all the corners and all the edges have this interesting hexagonal pattern on them. Those are friction ridges used to help reduce the friction when they're rubbing against each other, and that's part of what makes the cube feel so effortless to turn. Anyway, I want to really quickly go just a little bit deeper. I'm not going to take the cube entirely apart. I just want to unscrew this center piece and see what happens. Okay, here we go. This will help us get the corners out. And here is the inside of the cube without any of that blocking it. So that looks even cooler than it did before. Wow. So that is one massive core connecting to all the centers. You can also now more easily see these big black pieces, which are the hidden inner layer. If you don't already know, a 10x10 is really just an 11x11, except that inner layer is hidden underneath all the rest of the pieces. And so these are the hidden centers, and earlier you saw these big hidden edges. Here is sort of the inverse view, so all the magnetic edges and corners stuck together. As you can see, that also looks pretty incredible. And here is what it looks like to actually do a turn on the cube, all the pieces sort of sliding past each other. That is awesome. Anyway, it looks like we've made a little bit of a mess for ourselves, so let's go ahead and clean this up and get this cube back together. Alright, that was a little bit harder than I expected, but I managed to get it assembled. Anyway, the next thing I want to do is actually try out some patterns on this cube. This is the highest order even layer puzzle that I have ever tried, which normally isn't great for doing patterns, like the super flip doesn't look very good, but there are some other patterns that I want to try out. First, let's try out the basic checkerboard. The easy version of this on an even layer cube is to just do alternating double moves like this 4 different times. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4. There we go. And this is the classic pattern where you have the checkerboard on 4 sides and then just nothing on the other 2 sides. Looks pretty good. The other way to do a checkerboard, which is a little bit trickier but it gives a bit of a nicer look on even layer cubes is first to just pretend it's a 2x2 and do a checkerboard pattern like this. And then you pretend it's one layer smaller than it actually is. So in this case, we pretend that it's a 9x9. So we just skip that middle layer like this and do that on all 3 sides of the cube. Ta-da! And now we still have the full checkerboard on these 4 sides, but we also have a partial 9x9 checkerboard on these 2 opposite sides. So that also looks pretty good. I'm gonna skip over my favorite pattern, the super flip, because it just doesn't look great on even layer cubes, but let's do another quick classic, the dot pattern. Alright, that one looks pretty good like usual. I think the 10x10 is a good size of cube to do the dot pattern on. And finally, let's do something a little bit more ambitious, cube and a cube and a cube. In a cube and 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 a cube. Alright, check that out. That is a lot of cubes inside of cubes, and that looks absolutely awesome. Anyway, I think the final pattern that I want to do on this cube is, well, scrambling it up so we can go ahead and solve it. I'm really curious how long this is going to take me, because I've never solved a 10x10 before, but this cube also turns better than any other cube of this size that I've ever tried. Solving a 9x9 normally takes me around 18 minutes, so my guess would be something maybe around 25 minutes. Let's see. Wow, that was a really interesting solve for a bunch of reasons. For one, my prediction was pretty much spot on. I was actually a little bit faster at just under 24 minutes. 2, I definitely underestimated solving the 10x10. I wasn't expecting it to be that much harder than the 9x9, but it definitely was a lot more tedious than I thought it'd be. And 3, the reason that time was still pretty fast is that has got to be the best experience I have ever had solving a big cube. Normally when I'm solving something like this 9x9, it's just so slow and catchy and everything that I'm spending so much extra time aligning the layers, making sure everything is right before I turn it. It's just so much slower, whereas this thing has finally achieved a level of turning where you just don't have to think about it. It honestly reminded me of just solving on my main 7x7. The alignment of the magnets and the effortlessness of the turning means that you can put all of your focus into moving the pieces where you want them rather than trying to get the cube to turn the way that you want it to. In short, it is the best big cube I have ever tried, probably the best 10x10 on the market, and so if you're into 10x10 speed solving, this is absolutely the cube to get. But as always, that does come with a catch, the price. Just to give you a frame of reference, the 2 cheapest 10x10s on the market are the Mofeng Xiaoxi and the Qi, both at $60, whereas the Galaxy 10x10M is $110. I wouldn't say the value is that much worse, given the magnets and probably much better turning, but if all you want is a functional 10x10, this probably is not the best option for you. But consider this, the old Shengshao 10x10, which came out almost a decade ago, originally cost, adjusted for inflation, almost $170, so this isn't that crazy of a price for a 10x10, and in my opinion, it's totally worth it if you want to speed solve on it. I'll put links to buy not only the 10x10, but also the $80 magnetic 8x8 and $93 magnetic 9x9 down in the description, and again, you can get 5% off any of those at thecubicle.com, discount code Z3Cubing. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this very fun and historic unboxing. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.